Hey everyone, and welcome back to another explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here today. If you're someone who loves to systematically break down really fascinating, complex, and highly provocative texts, well, you are in the exact right place. Today, we're setting the stage for a totally structured, objective exploration of a text that completely flips the script on ancient mythology, the gods, and what we actually understand as magic. We're going to look at some extraordinary claims that blend ancient history with esoteric mechanics. So get comfortable, focus in, and let's get ready to learn something entirely unexpected.
We've all heard the epic stories of ancient miracles, right? I mean, they're the absolute bedrock of human history and global mythologies. But what if those defining moments of divine intervention weren't actually the originals? What if they were really just remnants, faint echoes of a much older, significantly more advanced system of cosmic magic? Well, we are about to explore a source that asserts exactly that, escalating our standard view of ancient mythology into something much grander and, frankly, totally cosmic.
To answer that question, we're turning to this specific source material, the teachings of the ancient god of Greece and Egypt, Ophelius, which is based on a publicly recorded spiritual reading from January 17th, 2018. Now, I want to be super clear here. My goal today isn't to ask you to believe or disbelieve the religious or esoteric views presented. I'm not taking any sides. My job is simply to impartially and systematically unpack its most fascinating claims for you. We're going to specifically focus on the fifth chapter, which dives deep into the sheer power of the magic wielded by the god Ophelia, who you probably know better from history as Osiris.
Okay, let's dive right into this. The foundational premise of this text requires us to completely rethink the ancient geopolitical landscape. The book describes an ancient era under Ophelia that wasn't just governed by your standard politics and warfare. Instead, it was an era defined by a radical coexistence. It was a time when the literal, earthly mechanics of building an empire lived side by side with very real, incredibly potent magical forces.
To really grasp this, we have to look at two totally distinct forces. On one hand, you have worldly military power. We're talking swords, massive armies, physical conquests, and traditional defense strategies. You know, the history we read about in standard textbooks. But on the flip side, the text asserts the equal presence of spiritual magical power. We're talking about literal curses, divine intervention, and large-scale spiritual phenomena orchestrated by priests and kings. According to the source, you couldn't just have a strong army. To survive and conquer, a kingdom needed unparalleled magical supremacy.
Right here in the text, it specifically establishes this dynamic, exploring how worldly military power and spiritual magical power were entirely valid, functioning forces operating at the exact same time. It paints a picture of a society where a spell or a curse was considered just as lethal and just as tactically important as a massive invading army. It's a genuinely fascinating way to reframe how ancient civilizations might have viewed their own survival.
And this brings us to a rather stunning comparative claim made in the text. If Ophelia commanded this ultimate era of magic, how does that actually compare to the famous miracles we all know today? Specifically, the text asks us to reconsider the biblical feats of Moses, things like parting the Red Sea or calling down the 10 plagues. Were those legendary events actually just a lesser copy of what came before?
Now, what's really interesting here is the staggering scale of magic attributed to Ophelia. The book claims he mastered the large-scale materialization of objects literally out of thin air. He was apparently capable of dropping actual meteorites and massive rocks from the sky onto his enemies. We are talking about wide-ranging, absolutely devastating geographical phenomena. Because of this, the text explicitly states that the later miracles of Moses, while incredibly famous, were essentially just second- or third-rate rehashes compared to the highly advanced, incredibly destructive magic operating during the era of Ophelia. It's a really bold historical downgrade of some of the world's most famous stories.
So, if Ophiuchus was literally that powerful, how in the world did he fall? Traditional Egyptian mythology tells us about a bitter, jealous family feud where his brother Seth murders him. But this text reframes that classic myth into something much more complex, a geopolitical, magical, dark conspiracy. Let's map out the mechanics of this proxy war clearly, because it's like a giant puzzle. Step 1. Enemy nations realized they absolutely couldn't defeat Ophelia through standard military might, so they targeted his kingdom spiritually while he was away on an expedition. Step 2. These foreign opponents utilized advanced black magic to specifically target and curse his brother, Seth. Step 3. Seth's mind is warped. He isn't just a jealous brother acting on his own anymore.
He is completely manipulated by enemy dark magic into executing the ultimate familial betrayal. It transforms a simple mythological murder into a highly sophisticated spiritual assassination orchestrated by foreign powers. The text lays the exact groundwork for this claim, revealing that while Ophealis was leading expeditions, his enemies found a vulnerability. They placed spiritual traps and curses. The book impartially reports that Seth was essentially just a pawn, maneuvered by the dark magic of rival nations who were desperate to topple Ophealis's golden age. So the crucial point is how the text handles what happens next, the insanely famous resurrection of Osiris, or Ophealis. It doesn't treat this as some vague metaphor or a purely religious symbol. Instead, it defines the resurrection as a highly specific dual phenomenon. According to the book, it combined a literal state of physical suspended animation, which is essentially what the mummification process was actively trying to achieve or preserve, with the complete and total spiritual return of the soul back into the body.
The source discussion breaks down the exact mechanics of this resurrection phenomenon. It explicitly contrasts it with ambiguous ideas of spiritual rebirth, arguing instead that the historical record points to a distinct, literal event where the physical and the spiritual were forcefully reunited through highly advanced ancient magical techniques. It's a very technical approach to a divine myth.
Which naturally leads us to the ultimate question, doesn't it? If this era possessed magic capable of dropping meteorites, manipulating minds across borders, and literally resurrecting the dead, where on Earth, pun intended, did this reality-bending power actually come from? We've talked a lot about earthly magic, but the text makes one final massive escalation regarding the true source of this power.
To prove just how central this final claim is, we only have to look at the book's table of contents. Section 6 plainly states, interacting with aliens from the Big Dipper system. Yep, you heard that right. The text completely pivots from ancient earthly mythology to extraterrestrial intervention, making it a foundational pillar of its whole historical argument. And this brilliantly illustrates the climax of the book's narrative. The supreme magical power of Ophealis wasn't just human ingenuity. And actually, scratch that, it wasn't even just earthly spirituality. The text asserts that this magic was fueled by direct cosmic guidance. It claims there was an era where extraterrestrial beings, specifically from the Big Dipper star system, were actively interacting with humanity, lending their cosmic power and advanced understanding of the universe to shape the golden age of ancient Egypt and Greece. It is an absolutely massive and structured reframing of history, taking us all the way from earthly military tactics straight up to the stars. Whether you view this as literal truth, esoteric philosophy, or just really fascinating sci-fi mythology, the text leaves us with an incredibly compelling final thought to ponder. If these immense cosmic forces and ancient magics truly shaped the foundation of our world's myths, what unseen forces, from this world or beyond, might still be quietly influencing our reality right now, today? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. I really hope you found this breakdown as captivating as I did. Until next time, keep questioning and keep learning.